I found out my real father was my uncle, and it shattered my world. Reddit stories. There are moments in life that seem perfectly ordinary at first, the kind of moments you hardly even think twice about. But somewhere along the way, those seemingly insignificant moments become pivotal, turning points that forever alter everything you thought you knew. This is one of those stories. It began innocuously, with a phone call, a conversation that seemed to be just another exchange of pleasantries between family members. No one could have known how this simple conversation would unravel a web of secrets that had been carefully concealed for years. It all started with my mother, as most things in my life did. A woman who had always been the epitome of strength, a pillar of wisdom and guidance. She was the one who always knew how to fix things, whether it was a broken toy or a broken heart. Her love for her family was undeniable, and to me, that was everything. I had grown up believing that the bonds of family were unbreakable, that the love we shared was the one constant that would always be there, no matter what life threw at us. But as I got older, the cracks began to show. It was a Thursday evening when the phone rang. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through an old family album, when I heard the sound of the phone vibrating on the counter. I was alone, so I picked it up without thinking much of it. It was my aunt, whom I hadn't spoken to in months. We were never close, but I had always respected her, if not admired her for the way she carried herself with such grace. "Hey, it's Anna," she said. Her voice was calm but carried a certain tension, like she was about to say something important. "I need to talk to you about something. It's about your mom." I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just a routine check-in or something trivial. But the moment I said, "Sure, what's going on?" I knew something was wrong. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could practically hear her take a deep breath. "It's something you need to know. Something that's been hidden from you," she said, her words slow, careful. "I've been meaning to tell you for a while, but I didn't know how." My heart skipped a beat. There was something in her voice, a certain gravity that sent a chill through me. My thoughts raced, my mind flashing through all the possible things she could be referring to. Was it about money, health, family drama? "Anna, just tell me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" There was another long pause before she spoke again. "It's about your father, Ba." My father. The mention of his name brought a wave of memories rushing back. Memories of him and my mother, the way they seemed to have it all together, the perfect couple. The way he would joke and laugh with us, always the life of the party, always there to make everything seem okay. But even in my childhood innocence, I had sensed something was missing. A certain distance between them, something unspoken. But it wasn't until I grew older that I began to understand there were things that didn't quite add up, things that my mother never talked about. And now, it seemed, my aunt was about to shed light on what had been kept hidden for so long. "What about him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper now. "He's not who you think he is," she said, the words hanging heavy in the air. "There's a truth, a secret that your mother has kept from you all these years. And I can't keep it anymore. You deserve to know the truth." I felt a wave of confusion and disbelief flood over me. A secret? What could she possibly mean? My father had always been a mystery in some ways, but he was still my father. He had always been there in one form or another. I had never questioned him, never imagined there was something I didn't know. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice growing more desperate. "What secret?" "Your father," Anna continued, her voice cracking slightly, "isn't your father." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt the blood drain from my face. I was struggling to process what she was saying, but everything inside me screamed that it couldn't be true. It wasn't possible. My father had always been my father, hadn't he? "You're not making any sense," I said, my voice shaky. "Of course he's my father. I've known him my whole life." Anna sighed, the sound heavy with years of regret. "I know this is hard to hear, but your real father, The one who was supposed to raise you, the one you should have grown up with, he was never around. Your mom, she made a choice she's been living with ever since. And now, it's time you knew the truth. I sat there in silence, my mind reeling. What was she saying? How could this be true? And why was my mother keeping something like this from me? Anna, I said, my voice barely a whisper. What are you trying to say? Your real father, she trailed off. Your real father is someone you know very well, someone you see every day. I felt the blood rush to my face, my heart racing. I was trying to piece together the fragments of her words, trying to make sense of the puzzle that was forming in my mind. Who was she talking about? Who could she possibly mean? And then it hit me. The world seemed to tilt beneath me, everything spinning out of control. My mind raced as I tried to come to terms with the truth that had been hidden from me for so long. Mom, I said softly, the words barely escaping my lips. Anna's voice was filled with sorrow now. Yes, your mother, she wasn't honest with you, and neither was your father. But now you have to know the truth, because there's no more hiding from it. I sat there, numb, trying to process what had just been said. The realization that my entire life, everything I thought I knew, might be a lie. That the people I trusted the most had kept this secret from me for reasons I couldn't even begin to understand. I wanted to scream, to ask my mother why she had kept this from me, why she hadn't told me sooner. But deep down, I knew that asking the questions wouldn't change anything. The truth was out now, and there was no turning back. As the weight of the revelation settled over me, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I sat there in silence, my mind whirling in a maelstrom of confusion, disbelief, and anger. The words my aunt had spoken echoed in my mind like a broken record. Your real father is someone you know very well. I couldn't shake the image of my mother, the woman I had always trusted, the woman I had always believed to be my rock, hiding something so monumental. My thoughts kept circling around her, and yet, I couldn't make sense of it. How had she kept such a thing from me for so long? The room around me felt suffocating, the air thick with the weight of the secret that had just been thrust into my life. I wanted to call my mother, confront her, demand answers, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Part of me feared what I would hear, and another part of me wasn't sure if I was ready to face the truth that might be waiting for me on the other side of that conversation. I sat there, frozen for what felt like hours, before my phone rang again. I glanced down at the screen and saw that it was my Aunt Anna calling once more. My heart skipped a beat. Was she calling to explain more? Or perhaps, to backtrack on everything she had just told me? I hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to answer. But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, urged me to swipe the screen and accept the call. Anna, I said, my voice shaking slightly. What do you mean? Who is he? Who's my real father? There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Anna spoke again, her tone softer now, almost regretful. I know this is a lot to take in, but it's the truth. Your real father it's your mother's brother. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. My uncle. My mind immediately raced to all the times I'd spent with him over the years, all the family gatherings, the holidays, the birthday parties. He had always been there, a constant presence in my life, and I had always assumed he was just my uncle. But now, the idea that he could be my biological father was unthinkable. A truth so strange it didn't even seem possible. My uncle? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. But why? How could this happen? Anna sighed heavily. Your mother was young when it happened. She was vulnerable, confused. And your uncle, he took advantage of that. It was a mistake, something neither of them are proud of, and something they both tried to bury for years. Your mom, she thought it was best to keep it from you, to protect you from the hurt and the shame. I was in a state of shock, struggling to grasp the enormity of what she was telling me. But why keep it from me? Why not tell me the truth? No, Anna replied. Your mother thought it was for the best. She didn't want you to know, Not unless you were ready. She was trying to shield you from a past she regretted. And your uncle, well, he didn't want anyone to know either. It's a secret they both wanted to keep hidden forever. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, a sense of betrayal flooding over me. I had always looked up to my mother. She had been the person I turned to for everything, the one who had guided me through life, through my darkest moments. And now, I felt as though the foundation of my entire existence was crumbling beneath me. The person I had always known to be my father, the one who had raised me, had not been my biological father at all, and my real father, the man who had contributed to my very being, was my uncle. The one man I had grown up trusting. I was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion, and yet, amidst all of it, there was an overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could my mother have hidden this from me for so long? How could she have kept me in the dark about something so vital, so fundamental to my identity? Anna's voice broke through my thoughts, soft and measured. I know this is hard to process, but I want you to understand something. Your mother has always loved you. She did what she thought was best, even if it wasn't the right thing. But now you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to understand where you come from. I nodded, though Anna couldn't see me. I don't know if I can handle this, I whispered, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I don't know what to do with all of this. I understand, Anna said, her voice filled with empathy. But you don't have to figure it out all at once. Take your time. And when you're ready, you can talk to your mom. She'll explain everything to you. I'm sure of it. I hung up the phone and sat in the quiet, the weight of the revelation still settling over me. I felt as though the world had been tilted on its axis, and I was struggling to keep my balance. The pieces of my life, the carefully constructed narrative that had made me who I was, were suddenly falling apart, revealing a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The next few days passed in a blur. I went through the motions, pretending everything was fine, even as my mind continued to spiral. I couldn't stop thinking about my mother, about what I had learned, and what I still didn't understand. I couldn't help but wonder how much of my life had been shaped by this secret, by the fact that my real father had been someone so close, someone I had always seen as just another family member. I spent a lot of time reflecting on my relationship with my mother. Had she always known that I would eventually learn the truth? Had she been waiting for the right moment to tell me? Or had she hoped that the secret would never come out? I wanted to believe that she had kept the truth hidden because she thought it was for the best, that she had acted out of love and protection. But a small part of me, the part that felt hurt and betrayed, couldn't understand why she hadn't trusted me enough to be honest with me from the start. I decided that I needed to talk to her. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, caught between the past and the present, between the family I had always known and the one that had been hidden from me. I needed answers, and though I was terrified of what those answers might be, I knew that I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The day I called my mother was the longest day of my life. I knew that the conversation we were about to have would change everything. But what I didn't know was just how deep the secrets ran, or how far back the lies went. The days leading up to the phone call felt like an eternity. I could barely focus on anything else, my mind consumed by the looming conversation with my mother. I had never felt so torn in my entire life. On one hand, I wanted answers. I needed to hear the truth directly from her. But on the other hand, I feared what that truth might reveal. Could I ever look at my family the same way again? Could I ever trust my mother the way I once had? The weight of the situation was unbearable, and I found myself lost in thought at the strangest moments while driving, during meals, even when I tried to fall asleep at night. My phone, once an innocent device I used for mundane tasks, had become a symbol of the unknown, of a life I was about to uncover. Every time it buzzed or rang, I expected it to be her, and each time I hesitated, unsure if I was ready. But the day finally came. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had been pacing around my apartment for hours. The sunlight filtered in through the window, casting long shadows on the floor, but nothing felt bright. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel it tightening around my chest, making it hard to breathe. I couldn't put it off any longer. I had to make the call. I picked up my phone and stared at her name on the screen for a long time. My finger hovered over the dial button, and I wondered if there was any way I could prepare myself for this conversation. But then I realized that no matter how many times I rehearsed it in my mind, I would never be prepared for the truth. Finally, I pressed the button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and I felt my pulse quicken with each passing second. And then, finally, my mother's voice came through the line. "Hello?" It was so simple, so normal. A single word that seemed so out of place in the context of everything I had learned. I wasn't sure what I had expected. Maybe a tearful admission, maybe a long, drawn-out explanation. But it was just that simple, familiar greeting that made everything feel even more surreal.
"Mom,"
I said, my voice tight. "We need to talk." There was a pause on the other end. "Of course," she said, though I could hear the hint of concern in her tone. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I spoke to Aunt Anna," I said, each word feeling heavier than the last. She told me everything. I could hear my mother's breath catch on the other end of the line, and in that moment I knew. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment I would find out, and she knew she couldn't hide it any longer. "I should have told you," she said quietly, her voice faltering. "I didn't want you to find out this way. I wanted to protect you, to keep you safe from the hurt." I felt my throat tighten, a lump forming that I couldn't swallow. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom? Why keep it from me for so long? Why didn't you trust me enough to know the truth?" There was another long pause. I could hear her breathing, slow and deliberate, as if she were trying to gather the strength to say what had been left unsaid for so many years. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, her voice trembling now. "When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know what to do. Your father, he wasn't ready to be a father. He wasn't willing to take responsibility. And your uncle, he was there for me when no one else was. He promised he'd help me, promised he'd be there for me." Her words were a blur in my mind, and I had to force myself to listen carefully to what she was saying. My father wasn't my father. It was my uncle. But it wasn't that simple, was it? There was so much more to this story than I had been told. I was young, confused. My mother continued. "I made a mistake. I should have told you, but I didn't know how. I thought I could protect you from it, that you wouldn't have to carry the weight of our past. But I was wrong." I felt my hands tremble as I gripped the phone tighter. "So, you and Uncle, you and him. We didn't have a normal relationship," she interrupted quickly, as though she knew exactly where my mind was going. "It wasn't like that. It was a one-time thing, something that happened when everything felt like it was falling apart. Your uncle was there for me, and I was weak. But we both knew it wasn't right, that it couldn't continue. After you were born, we agreed to never speak of it again, to pretend it never happened. I didn't know what to say. My emotions were all over the place. Anger, sadness, confusion, guilt. It felt like my whole world was unraveling before my eyes. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to ask the question that had been haunting me since the moment Aunt Anna had revealed the truth. Did Dad know? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "No," she replied, almost too quickly. "Your father never knew. He never suspected. He raised you as his own, and I never told him. I never wanted him to find out. I didn't want to lose him." The weight of her words hit me harder than I ever could have imagined. My father, my real father, the man I had always known, had been kept in the dark all these years. The family I thought I had, the life I thought I understood, had been built on a lie. "And what about Uncle?" I asked, my mind struggling to process everything. Why didn't he ever say anything? Why didn't he ever tell me the truth? He wanted to forget, my mother said softly. He wanted to pretend it never happened, just like I did. I think, deep down, he knew it was wrong. And when you were born, he stepped back. He made sure you were taken care of, but he never wanted to be a part of your life in that way. But he's my father, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. How could he just step back? How could he act like it didn't matter? I don't know, my mother said, her voice choked with emotion. I can't answer that. But what I can tell you is that I never stopped loving you, never stopped caring for you. You've always been my child, and nothing changes that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that this whole situation was unfair, that I didn't deserve to have my world turned upside down like this. But I didn't. I just sat in the silence, processing everything she had just told me. Do you hate me? She asked, her voice small. No, I whispered, though part of me wasn't sure what I felt anymore. I don't hate you. I don't know how to feel right now. There was a long pause, and I could hear my mother crying on the other end of the line. I felt a deep ache in my chest as I imagined her, sitting there, burdened by the guilt of all these years, trying to make things right but knowing that the damage had already been done. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to be like this. I know, I said, my own voice barely audible. I just need time. And with that, the conversation ended. I hung up the phone, the weight of the revelation pressing heavily on my chest. My life had changed in ways I couldn't even begin to understand. The man I had called my father was not my father, and my uncle, the person I had trusted all these years, was the one who had brought me into the world. I was lost, adrift in a sea of confusion and pain. And though I knew I would eventually have to face my uncle, confront him about what I had just learned, I wasn't ready. Not yet. The truth had shattered me in ways I never could have anticipated, and I needed time to piece myself back together before I could even think about moving forward. The days after my conversation with my mother felt like I was moving through a fog, every step heavy, uncertain. I wasn't sure what to do with the information I had been given, or how to process the overwhelming truth that my life had just been upended. My world, which had once felt solid and grounded, now felt fragile, like it could shatter at any moment. I couldn't escape the constant swirl of thoughts in my head, the endless questions, the pain of betrayal, and the knowing sense of loss. The simple truth was, nothing felt the same anymore. I spent hours pacing around my apartment, replaying everything my mother had told me. The revelation that my father wasn't actually my father, my real father was my uncle, kept looping in my mind over and over. My mind couldn't quite let go of it. How could I reconcile the man I had known as my father with the stranger that he had now become? How could I look at him the same way again after everything I had learned? I had always believed that family was unbreakable, that the bonds we shared were rooted in something pure and untouchable. But now, I wasn't sure what I believed anymore. The truth had thrown everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty into chaos. My family, my entire existence, had been built on secrets, on things left unsaid. And I was left to pick up the pieces, unsure of what was real and what had been a lie. One afternoon, as I sat on my couch, staring blankly at the wall, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from my Aunt Anna. I think it's time you talk to your uncle. My heart skipped a beat. I had been dreading this moment, the moment when I would have to face my uncle, the man who had been both my father and my family, but who had also been a part of the lie that had shattered my world. Talk to him. The words felt impossible. How could I talk to him? How could I even look at him after everything that had happened? But deep down, I knew Anna was right. I couldn't keep running from this. I couldn't hide from the truth forever. It was time to face it, to face him. I stared at my phone for a long time before typing out a response. 1. Anna replied almost immediately. Soon. The longer you wait, the harder it will be. Trust me. I sat back in my chair, my heart pounding. She was right, of course. The longer I delayed, the more the tension would build. But no matter how much I knew I had to do this, I couldn't help but feel a surge of dread at the thought of confronting him. I thought back to all the years I had spent with my uncle. He had been such an integral part of my life. I had never questioned his presence, never thought twice about him being anything other than the kind, strong man I had always known. And now, everything had changed. The man who had been a father to me was, in fact, the man who had been my biological father. And I had to face him. The next few days dragged by, and with each passing moment, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I had to do it. I had to face him. But each time I thought about it, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach, as though I were about to walk into some great unknown, something far darker than I was ready to confront. It was on a Sunday afternoon that I finally called him. My fingers hovered over the dial button for what felt like an eternity before I pressed it, the sound of the phone ringing in my ear. He answered on the third ring, his voice warm and familiar, the same voice I had heard all my life. "Hey, it's John. What's up?" For a moment, I couldn't say anything. My throat felt tight, my heart racing. I didn't know where to start, what to say. The weight of everything that had happened in the past week seemed to swallow me whole. "John," I said, my voice wavering slightly, "we need to talk." There was a pause on the other end, a brief silence before he responded. "Okay, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I know the truth," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. His tone shifted instantly. "What do you mean? What truth?" I swallowed hard, gathering the courage to continue. "I know everything, John. About you, about my real father, about everything." There was a long silence, so long that I thought for a moment he might hang up. But then I heard him exhale, the sound deep and heavy. "I see," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You talked to your mom, didn't you?" I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Yes. She told me everything. About you. About everything I didn't know." Another silence. I could almost feel the weight of the moment between us, the air charged with unspoken words and unacknowledged feelings. "Listen," he began, his voice softer now. "I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, and I certainly never wanted you to find out this way." I felt a sharp pang of anger rise in my chest. "You think I wanted to find out this way? You think this is easy for me?" My voice cracked slightly, and I quickly swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't know how to process this, John. I don't know how to feel about you, about everything I thought I knew about my life." "I understand," he said quietly. "But I want you to know that I've always loved you. I've always cared about you, even if I couldn't be the father you needed me to be. And I know it's hard to believe right now, but I never wanted you to feel like you were lied to. I never wanted to cause you pain." His words didn't feel like enough, not nearly enough to undo the damage that had been done. How could they? How could anything undo the years of secrets, of lies, of confusion? But as I listened to him, I realized something. He wasn't the only one who had kept this secret. My mother, too, had been part of this. They both had made choices that led to this moment. And now, here we were, trying to piece together the fragments of a family that had been built on something other than truth. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said quietly. "I don't know if I can forgive either of you. I don't expect you to," he said. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I am sorry. I'm sorry for everything." The words hung heavy between us. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to make sense of it all. My mind was a whirlwind, emotions I hadn't even known I was capable of swirling inside me. Anger, betrayal, sadness, confusion. And yet, through it all, I knew that I had to keep moving forward. I had to find a way to face this, to make sense of it. I couldn't keep running from the truth. Maybe we can talk more about this," I said after a long pause. "But not now, not today. I need time." "I understand," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Take all the time you need. I'm here when you're ready. And with that, the conversation ended. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking slightly, my mind racing. I had confronted my uncle, the man who had been my father. And though I hadn't found any clear answers, I had taken the first step toward understanding the truth. But even as I put the phone down and sat in silence, I knew that this was just the beginning. The truth had been revealed, but the road ahead was long and uncertain. And though I didn't have all the answers, I knew one thing for sure: my life would never be the same again. The following days felt like a blur. I drifted through them in a haze, each one blending into the next. My thoughts were clouded, my mind constantly shifting between anger, confusion, and a sense of helplessness. The conversation with my uncle had been unsettling, but it had also brought a strange sense of finality. We had spoken, acknowledged the truth, but it felt like there was so much left unsaid, like the pieces of this fractured puzzle weren't fitting together quite yet. I couldn't bring myself to speak to my mother just yet. There was too much between us now, too much pain, too many unanswered questions. I had tried calling her a couple of times, but each time I dialed her number, my hand shook and my throat tightened. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear her voice again, not after everything she had kept from me. What could she say? What explanation could possibly make sense of the years of deception? Instead, I spent my days wandering through the streets, lost in thought, seeking something, anything, that could help me make sense of my emotions. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I kept walking, hoping that the physical movement might somehow help clear the mental fog. I found myself at a small park near my apartment, a place I used to visit when I was younger. It had always been a sanctuary for me, a place where I could think, a place where everything felt safe and familiar. But now, standing there on the grass, it felt like a distant memory. I sat on one of the benches, staring at the trees as they swayed in the wind, the branches rustling softly. The peacefulness of the scene seemed to mock my turmoil. How could something so calm exist in a world that had been turned upside down? As I sat there, lost in my own thoughts, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, surprised to see a message from my mother. "We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment I had been dreading. I had known this conversation was inevitable, but I had hoped, even if just for a moment, that it might not come. I took a deep breath and began typing a response. "When?" The message came back almost immediately. "No. Can you come over?" I stared at the screen, feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face her, not yet. But part of me knew that I couldn't keep avoiding her forever. I couldn't keep running from the truth. "I'll be there in a few." I didn't wait for her reply. I stood up, stuffing my phone back in my pocket, and began walking. I didn't know what I was going to say to her or what she would say to me. But I knew this was the only way forward. It was time to face the pain, to confront the woman who had been both my mother and the person who had kept the most important truth of my life hidden from me. When I arrived at her apartment, my heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear the sound of my footsteps. I rang the doorbell, trying to steady my breathing. A moment later, the door opened, and there she was. My mother. She looked tired, older somehow, her face drawn with worry. She smiled faintly when she saw me, but it was a smile filled with sadness. The kind of smile you give someone when you know they've already lost faith in you. "Come in," she said softly, stepping aside to let me through. I walked past her, into the apartment I had visited countless times before, but it felt different now. The walls seemed smaller, the air heavier. It was as though the very space itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. We both sat down on the couch, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. I could feel the weight of everything that had happened, everything that had been said and unsaid, hanging in the air. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "I'm so sorry, you know. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted you to find out like this, not through Aunt Anna. But I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain everything. I nodded slowly, my eyes fixed on the floor. You didn't know how to explain it. Or you didn't want to? How could you keep something like this from me, Mom? How could you let me grow up believing that my father was someone he wasn't? She took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I thought about telling you so many times, but I was scared of what it would do to you. I didn't want you to hate me. I didn't want you to feel like everything you knew about your life was a lie. And I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, of you thinking that I didn't love you. But that's the thing, Mom, I said, my voice growing more forceful now. You did lose me. Not in the way you thought you would, but you did. Because you lied to me. You kept me in the dark about something so important. How could I trust you after that? How could I believe in anything you say after everything you've kept from me? Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out, as if to touch my hand, but I pulled back, the distance between us growing even wider. I was wrong, she said softly. I should have told you, I know that now. But I was trying to protect you, trying to shield you from something that I thought would destroy you. I thought that if I kept the truth from you, you would be okay. But I was wrong. I see that now, and I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to say. The anger, the hurt, it was all still there, bubbling under the surface. But at the same time, a small part of me understood. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the weight of the secret that she had carried for so long. I could see how much she had loved me, how much she had tried to protect me, even if her methods had been flawed. I don't know if I can forgive you, Mom, I whispered, my voice trembling. Not yet. I don't even know if I can ever forgive you. But I don't want to hate you. I don't want this to destroy our relationship. She nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. I understand. I know it will take time, and I'm willing to give you all the time you need. I just want you to know that I love you, and I always will. I stared at her, my heart torn in two. Part of me wanted to lash out, to scream at her for everything she had done. But another part of me just wanted to hold her, to make everything go back to the way it was before. I didn't know what was right, what was fair. I didn't know how to move forward from this. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't keep running from the truth. The truth had been revealed, and now I had to figure out what to do with it. I didn't have all the answers, and I wasn't sure where this journey would lead me, but I knew I had to face it. I had to face my mother, face the pain and find a way to heal. Maybe, I said quietly, after a long pause, maybe we can start over. Maybe we can try to rebuild what we had. She smiled through her tears, her hand trembling as she wiped them away. I hope so, she whispered. I really do. And for the first time in days, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. That this wasn't the end of everything, but the beginning of something new. Something harder, but something worth fighting for. The days after that conversation with my mother were unlike anything I had experienced before. They were a mixture of silent reflection, tentative steps toward understanding, and occasional moments of clarity that shone through the darkness. We didn't speak every day, but when we did, it was different. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared realization that things had changed, but that didn't mean everything was lost. We were navigating the delicate process of rebuilding trust, piece by piece, like a fragile bridge being reconstructed from both ends. But even as we tried to find our way back to one another, there were still the lingering questions, the unresolved emotions that neither of us had fully addressed. How could I move forward when the foundation of my life had been built on a lie? Could I ever truly forgive my mother? Could I look at my uncle the same way again? And perhaps most importantly, could I ever feel whole again after this revelation? The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't expected. My mother and I had settled into a rhythm, speaking more openly than we had before. But it was always careful, as though we were testing the waters, unsure of what the depth of our conversation might reveal. She seemed to be doing her best to give me space, to let me process everything in my own time. And I appreciated that. But there was always the unspoken question hanging between us: was it enough? Then, one afternoon, a message came that I hadn't been expecting. It was from my uncle. "We need to talk." My heart stopped for a moment. I had been avoiding this. I had been running from the inevitable confrontation, unsure of how to face him. I had thought I was ready, but now, looking at the message on my phone, I wasn't so sure. My fingers hovered over the screen for a moment, indecisive, before I took a deep breath and replied. "When?" The reply came almost immediately. "No? Can you come over?" I stared at the message, a lump forming in my throat. I didn't know if I could do this. I had already confronted my mother, tried to make sense of the secrets she had kept from me, but this felt different. This was the man who had played such a pivotal role in my life, the one I had called Dad for as long as I could remember, the one who had shaped my understanding of what it meant to be loved and cared for. And now he was asking to speak with me. What would we even say? But there was no turning back. I couldn't keep avoiding the truth. I needed to face him, just as I had faced my mother. So, after a long moment of hesitation, I grabbed my coat and left my apartment. His house was just a few blocks away. I walked there, each step feeling heavier than the last, the weight of what was about to happen pressing on me. When I arrived, I rang the doorbell, my palms sweating as I waited for the door to open. The air felt thick, like the world had stopped moving, like I was suspended in time. When the door finally opened, there he was, my uncle, my father. He looked older than I remembered, his hair graying at the temples, the lines around his eyes deeper than before. There was no warmth in his smile this time, no easy banter or jokes like there used to be. It was just him, quiet, measured, and distant. "Come in," he said, stepping aside to let me through. I walked into the house that had once felt like a second home, but now it felt like a place I no longer recognized. We sat down in the living room, and for a few moments, neither of us spoke. There was so much I wanted to say, but no words seemed to fit. I could feel the tension building between us, the weight of the unspoken truth pressing down on both of us. Finally, he spoke. "I know this is hard," he said, his voice low. "I know I've hurt you, and I know that nothing I say can take that away." I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. The emotions were too raw, too tangled inside me. The man sitting across from me had been my father in every sense of the word, and now he wasn't. He had been a part of a lie, a part of the secret that had torn my world apart. "You should have told me," I finally said, my voice shaking. "You should have told me what you were to me. You should have told me the truth." But he nodded slowly, his eyes filled with guilt. "I should have," he said. "Never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted you to feel like you weren't important, that you weren't loved. But I made a choice, a long time ago, to keep my distance, to keep my secret. And I regret it every single day." I stared at him, trying to read the expression on his face, trying to see if there was any trace of the man I had once known, the man I had trusted. But all I could see was a stranger, a man who had betrayed me in the worst way possible. "I've spent my whole life thinking of you as my father," I said, my voice breaking. "You've been the person who taught me how to ride a bike, how to build things, how to laugh when things got tough. You were the one I turned to for advice, for support. And now, I don't know who you are anymore." He didn't say anything for a long time. I could see the pain in his eyes, the regret that had haunted him for years. But it didn't change the fact that he had kept the truth from me, that he had allowed me to grow up with a lie. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't expect anything from you, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. And if you need space, if you need time, I'll give it to you. I just wanted you to know that I never stopped caring about you." For a long time, I didn't say anything. The words felt heavy, like they were caught in my throat, refusing to come out. What could I say to that? Sorry didn't seem like enough, not after everything that had happened. But part of me could still see the man I had loved, the man who had always been there for me, even if he had made mistakes. I don't know what to do with this, I said finally, my voice soft. I don't know if I can forgive you. But I'm not sure I want to just walk away, either. Bah, he nodded again, the lines on his face deepening. I understand. And I'll give you whatever time you need. I just hope that someday we can find a way back to each other. I hope you'll be able to forgive me, but I won't rush you. I can't. We sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, of anger and sadness, of confusion and longing. I wanted to run, to escape this moment, but I knew I couldn't. This was my reality now, the truth that I had to face, no matter how much it hurt. When I finally stood to leave, he stood up with me. He didn't try to stop me, didn't reach out for a hug or offer empty words of comfort. He simply looked at me, his eyes filled with a quiet sadness. Take care of yourself, he said, and know that I'm always here if you need me. I nodded, but I didn't speak. I couldn't. There were no words that felt right. I left his house that day feeling more lost than ever before. The truth had been revealed, the secrets had come to light. But they had only left me with more questions. My family, the people I had trusted most, had been hiding the truth from me for so long. And now everything felt like it was in pieces. But I realized something as I walked away from his house, something that I had been too afraid to admit before. The truth may have shattered my world, but it also gave me the chance to rebuild, to find a way to move forward, to understand who I was, and to redefine what family meant. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but I had to start somewhere. I had to choose to move forward, to face the truth, and to build a new life from the pieces of my past. It wasn't about forgiveness, not yet, but about finding a way to heal. And maybe, just maybe, I would find a way to trust again. It wouldn't be easy, but I had learned one thing: the truth, no matter how painful, is the first step toward freedom. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a small, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to heal. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and like the video.